We ended the book of James last week. I hope you were here. Not that I can't tell who was here and who wasn't, because I can pretty much look at the whole group of you and know for sure who was and wasn't. Shame on you if you weren't. No, I'm kidding. It's fine. And I left you with several things when we ended James. I left you with a lot more than James does, actually, because the book of James, as we established, it is a letter. The book of James is a letter. But it doesn't end the way Paul's letters do. Paul, when he's writing a letter, he lists a whole bunch of people off. The last chapter, he says, hey, by the way, while you're passing through, can you say hi to this guy, this guy, this guy, and make sure you send greetings to this house and these people, and I haven't seen this guy in a long time, and all these kind of things. James doesn't do any of that. James just stops writing lessons. He just abruptly ends. He doesn't give a summary. He doesn't say, finally, brothers, or and in conclusion. He doesn't do any of that. And 1 minute he's teaching about prayer, and then he isn't. This is likely because his letter was not meant for one specific group, like an individual house of people, but rather the entire collective of all of those converted Jews who needed to be reminded of all the things that they've struggled through and all the things they're fighting with. It was a book of wisdom and lessons and reminders for all of them, the whole massive collection of these people. All of them who had the same past, the same present, and he wants them to use this letter as a resource for their future. And even though we have a little bit of the ideas of James's themes, I think that maybe he's possibly throwing in his missed idea here too as well, that perhaps he wanted to end with that same, like your life is a mist and it just vanishes after a little while. Like maybe his lesson to them is like a mist that vanishes, that he just says, here's the lesson, here's a lesson, here's a lesson, and then I'm gone. I'm out. And you're on your own. Figure it out. Sometimes letters end like that. They end like fog in the sunlight, where it just dissolves, it just disappears. We ended our series not with any goodbyes, but with missions. I introduced to you 3 separate operations, if you recall, each one representing a portion of what our attitude should be, what our default position should be for taking action in our community. Operation Walkie Talkie is our call to get out there and physically do good works, because if we are living out our faith, we should be naturally compelled to go out and do things for the community around us. Operation Teeter Totter establishes the approach that we take as we put our faith into action. We lower ourselves in order for God to be lifted up. Remember teeter totter? We don't do anything to gain from our own works. We don't do anything to make it look good for us or to make us feel better about ourselves. We just do. And then Operation Hometown Diner, which was last week, we gave the direction for what it looks like and feels like to care for the actual needs on a community scale for those in your community. When you know your hometown and the people who are in it, you know what their needs are and what it takes to serve those people without even being asked. The servanthood can just happen. We go outward, we serve the need, and we do it humbly. And I put that all to you in just one nice summary slide. Where do we go? We go outward. What do? We serve the need. How do we do it? We do it humbly. And then, after I gave you that little summary screen, I left you with a physical object. I left you with a water bottle. And if you recall, I used that water bottle as a representation of the action that I wanted to take place to fulfill all 3 of those operations at one time. It was a plain drinking water bottle, didn't say from Lifestream Church on it. I didn't have it held up on a pedestal anywhere that I was going to make sure everybody saw me give it away somewhere. But it was, in fact, drinking water that is used for drinking, because it's drinking water. And I told you it was going to be put into service, into the community, because I know the needs of this community, and I know where the needs are. There were definitely many opportunities for me to distribute this water bottle this week. It was homecoming. Here in Batavia, we had our homecoming parade on Thursday, and I actually got to be a part of the homecoming parade this year. I've never been a part of it, but as soon as you get a truck, everyone needs you to use that truck to pull something somewhere. So we were in the parade, pulling the trailer that had the tennis team on it. And just one float ahead of us, there was I believe it was soccer was right in front of us, and then just ahead of them was the cross-country team. And the cross-country team was walking, and you can kind of see some of them maybe off to the side. You see like a big pink inflatable person. Yeah, all the cross-country kids were dressed up as characters walking the parade. And they were obviously walking because they're cross country, and it would be really ironic if the cross country kids weren't walking the whole parade. You'd be like, this is what you do. You live for this. Walk it. But they weren't. So they were walking, but they were walking in costume. Could have been a lot of opportunities for me to do kind of that marathon little cup of water paper thing, Like here, you need a refresher while you're doing your cross country parade walk. Definitely could have done that. There were also hundreds of children standing on the sidewalk of this parade, which is really, really scary for someone who is trained to stop a vehicle when children are on a sidewalk stepping into the road. Goes against everything I know from my own nature of work. But they were eagerly awaiting for candy. They wanted to see what you could give them. What kind of candy do you have coming out of your parade float? All of those kids would have benefited from a bottle of water more than a grocery bag full of Twizzlers or Skittles or any other Red 40 they've got floating in there. And that was just 1 hour of one day in this 1 week. My interactions from work or just being in town, the places I've gone, the places I went in and out of during the week, all brought multiple opportunities to give out water. I know my community, I know where its needs are, and I'm happy to contribute something that can provide a little bit of revitalization in a place where I know it has need, in that just that 1 hour of need. And you know what? I'm not going to tell you how that water bottle has been distributed. Not going to tell you. Because if I do, I'm adding it to my sermon to give my sermon more flavor that adds to the story, which gives me a little bit of gain, which goes against Operation Teeter-Totter. You don't get to know what happens to the water bottle because it's not for my gain, it's for God's. So just know that it's done. The water bottle is distributed, and if you contributed your own water bottles, which I would encourage you to do so, and I still will encourage you to do so, I'm not going to ask you where yours ended up at because they're all out there wherever they are like little individual drops in one big bucket of water. Every week of every year, we are all capable of giving out water to our community, are we not? It's a simple solution and it's a perpetual need. We are always going to be thirsty at some point. And it would really never matter how big of a congregation we were to give water. We can give the water we have to the community that needs the water. Whether we're 30 or 30,000, water is still water, and thirst is still thirst, right? Jesus pointed out the irrelevance of quantity when he turned a few fish into something that could feed thousands. He could have turned those fish into something that fed hundreds of thousands or millions. The number did not matter. It was a miracle either way. It has never been about an amount. It's the intent of the action. Let's look at this from Matthew 10. This is another part of that concept. Anyone who welcomes you welcomes me, and anyone who welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. Whoever welcomes a prophet as a prophet will receive a prophet's reward, and whoever welcomes a righteous person as a righteous person will receive a righteous person's reward. And if anyone gives even a cup of cold water to one of these little ones who is my disciple, truly I tell you, that person will certainly not lose their reward. He doesn't say anyone who gives at least 2 gallons of water to one of these little kids. It doesn't say anything along those lines of in a quantity of all types. He says even a cup, because it's not about the quantity. It's about the giving. If your heart gives because your heart wants to give, then there is no score to how much you can give. There's nothing to keep score of, which got me thinking. This is where I throw some philosophy on you, because why not? No amount of water is too large or too small to not still be called water. Can we agree to that? There is no amount of water too big or too small that you still would not say that that's water. 1 cup of water and 1 ocean of water are still examples of, you're all on my page here. I love it. Great. So water in a vocabulary sense is almost always plural. All right? Like speaking in terms of what a noun can be, water, aside from the elemental atomic nature of 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen makes water, that would be 1 unit of water. Just about everything you would ever encounter in life is going to be plural water. Whether it's a thimble full of water or a bathtub full of water or Lake Erie, it is still plural water. They're all plural amounts of the same simple thing, and that thing is water. And here's why that's interesting. So we're going to use 1 drop. I know that it's not, but let's just say that 1 drop is a single amount of water, okay? Because I don't want to get down into the basic elemental level again. We're going to stay with one drop. We can all visualize a drop of water. Yeah, okay. We're going to use one drop as a single unit. One drop of water sinks a ship. And I want you to literally let that sink in for a second. One drop of water sinks a ship. If a boat takes on water and it fills up, that water comes in from wherever it comes in, it takes on that water, it fills it up, and the boat sinks. It is looked at as a massive tragedy because the water has flooded in and consumed it. But every boat can take on some amount of water. Boats are designed to take in water, either from the sides when you're splashing in a storm, or there could be some little cracks where something can get in, whatever. It is capable of holding water. And in most cases, that water that comes in can be handled by a boat. But eventually, there's too much, and the boat can't handle it anymore. The weight or the pressure is too much, the walls rupture, or the vessel just takes on too much weight and just drops. But it always happens too quickly for us to see that exact moment when it happened. If we were to put all that water on a balancing scale and have it just absolutely 100% balanced from side to side, all the water on one side and the weight of the boat on the other, and you start trying to mess with it and add one side to the other, it really could only take one drop of water. If you were to get it perfectly balanced, one drop of water would make the boat sink. Can we agree to that? Great, we're still on the same page. Still on the same page. Okay, well, here's where that theory holds true, the other side. One drop of water also quenches a thirst. Again, it doesn't seem reasonable when you think about things in terms of such minute quantities. The same logic is there. If your body needs an amount of water to be hydrated, if there is a specific amount that you can say, yes, I have enough to be filled with the hydration I need, you could reduce it down to that same scale and eventually have a tipping point where you have enough water to have your thirst quenched, where your body has the amount of hydration that it needs after that one solitary drop has been added. So in terms of serving our community, and this is where it all comes full circle, no amount can really be seen as too little because it may be enough for the circumstance, right? On the evening of December 13th, 1862, as hundreds of U.S. soldiers lay wounded and dead on the fields of the Battle of Fredericksburg, a young Confederate sergeant crossed over the stone wall and under the cover of darkness and distributed water to the wounded enemy soldiers. The soldier who committed this brave act was reported later by Confederate General Joseph Kershaw to be Richard Kirkland of the 2nd Unit of the South Carolina Group. Kirkland became known as the Angel of Mary's Heights, and his story is often repeated because it highlights bravery of soldiers during the horrors of war and the hope that connections between us are more powerful than the things that divide us. Richard Kirkland, a Confederate soldier, risked his own life to sneak around in the dark, collecting water from the canteens of fallen soldiers that didn't need it anymore, to redistribute it to injured and thirsty and dying Union soldiers who lay wounded on the battlefield. Richard Kirkland was a single drop of water, but he was the single drop of water that they needed during the circumstance that they had. He could have kept it for himself. More water for the Confederates. He could have marched on to safety. He could have left them for dead in the darkness. But his heart's intention was to serve. He saw that not for himself, not for his gain, but that outwardly someone needed to be served. Someone had a need. Mark 12:41. Jesus sat down opposite the place where the offerings were put and watched the crowd putting their money into the temple treasury. Many rich people threw in large amounts, but a poor widow came and put in 2 very small copper coins, worth only a few cents. Calling his disciples to him, Jesus said, "Truly I tell you, this poor widow has put more into the treasury than all the others. They all gave out of their wealth, but she, out of her poverty, put in everything, all she had to live on." There is no quantity of anything that we have to give, whether it's money or water or time itself, that has any more value to it than someone else. It's the fact that we're willing to give it, right? That we don't care about holding on to it for ourselves for some foolish reason. We give out of our own individual hearts because we desire to serve the need one drop at a time. One drop at a time. Mother Teresa said, we ourselves feel that what we are doing is just a drop in the ocean, but the ocean would be less because of that missing drop. We're all drops. Individually, we don't seem like much. And in contrast to some other massive communities of believers on the other side of the city, we may feel like a thimble in a bathtub. But our hearts are built the same. All built the same. Proverbs 11:25, a generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. I'm calling this series Mission Possible. Not to be hokey, not to play off of a Tom Cruise movie, but because the church and the act of serving in the community is not a crazy pipe dream. It's something that doesn't require weeks of strategy. It doesn't need us to do something really, really big and grand or planned out. It's just a part of our Christian nature. Sometimes we just need to be reminded that our gain is not the goal. We get stuck in the day-to-day, the week-to-week. We forget all the things that are wrapping up and building up in us and what we can do to do good. Even though we know the good we ought to do, it doesn't always come out of us. But whether we are serving 1 or 100 or 1,000,000, the number is irrelevant. But if we aren't even serving the one, what are we doing? That single drop is not quenching a thirst. That single drop is sinking a ship. We begin with our drops of water because this congregation needs to get its feet wet, pardon the pun. We give financially to missionaries abroad, we give to other ministries, but there hasn't been a lot really of emphasis on just the going out and just doing local servanthood works. Not that local servanthood works aren't happening, because we don't need to document them, we don't need to make record of them. I don't want to know about them in bigger, grander scales because that violates Operation Teeter-Totter. That's not the side of the teeter-totter we want to be on. But we still need to be reminded by each other, together, that we serve a purpose together. I'm going to give you one final verse once again from James, and then we'll be done with James for a couple of weeks. Religion that our God the Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. We are together in this. Part of our religion together is to keep each other from being polluted, to keep each other from being corrupted. I don't want to push to compel us to do some massive community cleanup project or a day of service. I mean, those things are awesome. It's cool if we could go out and do a lot of things for the community. And I do want to encourage things to happen. But I want to encourage things to happen as single drops of water, to become plural water together, to keep each other committed and to keep each other from being polluted by the world. I wrote my phone number back there on the counter underneath the mints. That is my cell phone number, right below my name. I'm not putting it up on the screen because I don't know what YouTube would do with that. I really don't know. But my number is back there on the counter. If you don't have it, put it in your phone, save it. It's back there so that if you would like to during this week, if any of you would like to go together with me to serve a need, visit someone who has no one. If you want me to hold a flashlight while you fix somebody's car because you don't want me fixing their car, I will hold the flashlight. Or to just help you hand out more bottles of water. Together, I will go with you. And I know I have a horribly crazy schedule, but I believe that God can make the time irrelevant. That it will not matter time-wise, that I can find the way to make it happen. I will go and be a drop of water with you. Because we are the church, no matter how many, we are plural. Amen. Let's pray.